Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. Hi, I'm Steve Thompson, president of Emery Thompson Machinery, and I'm here today with Tie-Dye Jeff, who you all have met before. And we thought it would be helpful to you if we went through some of the terminology that we use in the frozen dessert business. Just like our IT man who works in computers and uses expressions I've never heard of or understood, like bits and bauds and all these other computer terms, we also in the ice cream business and the frozen dessert business have terms that nobody really fully understand. So Jeff and I are going to talk about them and also answer questions from the massive audience here today, maybe all the way back up in the balcony, like you said.
There must be 3,500 here today.
Incredible. Well, let's get started. The first one is Overrun. And you know what? I forgot my bottle of rum. And I have
not Overrun.
No, not Overrun. Oh, Overrun. Well, I guess I'm going to have to do without it. The term overrun is talking about air in ice cream. Ice cream is made up of milk, cream, sugar, and skim milk. There's also air in ice cream. Without air, it would be like eating lard. It wouldn't be very good. In fact, my father, Theodore Thompson, who ran the company before me, was called down to a Senate subcommittee hearing back in the 1960s because I think it was Senator Foghorn Leghorn was stating that those ice cream businesses were pumping air into the ice cream and cheating the people. Well, if you didn't have air in ice cream, it wouldn't be ice cream. We call it overrun, and the easiest way to describe this is overrun is like proof in alcohol. If you have a bottle of rum and it's, go ahead, the yo-ho-ho, you're dressed for it.
Huh?
No, okay.
I was napping.
Just want to see if you're awake. If you have a bottle of rum and it says it's 100 proof, that means it's 50% alcohol and 50% other stuff, mostly water. So 100 proof is 50 alcohol and 50 other stuff. If we have an ice cream that is, let's call it 100 proof, 100 proof ice cream would be 50% dairy product and 50% air. But rather than call it proof in ice cream, we call it overrun. So we can switch the terms, they're interchangeable. Instead of a 100 proof rum, we have 100% overrun rum, or we have 100% overrun ice cream. That means the ice cream is half dairy product and half air. We can't go above 100% legally. The federal government has said that's the maximum you can do in order to call it ice cream. In the old days, the old timers back in the 30s and 40s would run our machines and they could pull out 120, 130% overrun. It was like eating whipped cream, but that's what people liked. Now, overrun is not a bad thing. Air is not a bad thing in ice cream. You need air in ice cream. First off, let me say, nobody has ever walked out of an ice cream parlor, nobody's ever walked out of your place and said, you know, that's the best damn air content I ever ate. People don't eat your ice cream for the air content, they eat it for the flavor. So there are different overruns depending on what it is you're trying to produce. We put Haagen-Dazs into business many, many years ago. That was Reuben Mattis and his mother, and they were just down the street from our factory. We also put Ben & Jerry into business. They were up in New Hampshire and then Vermont, and they both made a low air content or low overrun ice cream. Now, Haagen-Dazs, I think, is a great ice cream. It's high in fat, 16%, but it's low in air content. The net result is you buy a pint of Haagen-Dazs and you go home, and if you're like me, you take a spoonful of it when you get home. And then after dinner, you take a little more than a spoonful. And then at 11 o'clock at night, I also pull it out and take a spoonful. And I literally pick at the ice cream. I have yet to ever sit down and eat an entire pint of Haagen-Dazs ice cream. The stuff would sit like lead in your stomach. It's so heavy.
Oh, you're a rookie.
You don't see a lot of, you don't see any, really, Haagen-Dazs ice cream parlors. When they did have a few, you often saw half-eaten ice cream cones in the trash outside the store. Because although it's a wonderful ice cream, and I have a great connection to it, the stuff is so heavy, so lacking in air, that it just is sitting heavy on your stomach. A 4-ounce portion with very little air is going to be quite small. It's going to fall to about the bottom third of the cone. An ice cream from Jeff's ice cream parlor, 4 ounces, is going to be falling off the cone. Your ice cream, I would say, because we've eaten a lot of it now today, you have a nice big portion and it leaves you feeling refreshed. You say, oh, that was so good I could eat another one.
Ooh.
Wouldn't you say that's true?
Well, I don't know. People don't get another. You know, it's a policy in the store. The first one is full price, second one is half price, third one's free.
Yeah?
That's always been my policy.
Does anybody ever get to the third?
No. One person tried it.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, they're still there eating it. But nobody eats more than one. We give a big portion, but I know what you mean about Overrun. When I lift up my gallons, some gallons weigh 15 pounds. Other gallons weigh 6. Mm-hmm. And that's how much air is in it, right?
Yes. Yeah. But everybody loves your ice cream.
They do.
Because the air has to be in balance with the fat content and the flavoring.
And different ice creams have different air content.
That's right.
By their very nature.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's rare that you're going to find an ice cream parlor where they're all the same.
Right.
Some flavors, like strawberry, just expand more than does chocolate
I think
chip.
a lot of times the vanillas expand more than the chocolates. Does that make any sense?
I'll take your word for it.
Well, that's what I find.
I don't make as much ice cream as you do.
Well, because I see the yield, and when I put in, say, 10 quarts of mix, I'll get 7 gallons of a vanilla type ice cream, and I'll only get 5 gallons of another type of ice cream. Mm-hmm. Same speed and everything.
Yeah. So they do vary.
They sure do.
And so you don't just say to yourself, I'm going to make an ice cream that's 40% overrun. You vary it by the taste and what you're looking for. Now, when you get into gelato, gelato is a much lower air content ice cream, but we get away with it because it's also a much lower fat content. Instead of 16%, it's all the way down around 8%. So the lower the fat, you can have less air because it isn't going to sit so heavy on your stomach. Even so, you don't have large portions of gelato the way you do American ice cream.
Right.
It's just served differently.
And by the way, you know, a lot of these people don't have stores or haven't made ice cream. It's not something you have to worry about or even think about. It just happens. It just happens naturally.
Next, we wanted to talk about...
Any questions about that?
Yeah, any questions?
Okay.
We wanted to talk about Butterfat. Now,
here's a question.
Oh, yes, go ahead.
You said the overrun is controlled by the speed in the machine?
In our machinery, with the infinite overrun control, we're the only machinery that you can vary the overrun by just varying the speed of the drive. Really pretty simple. If you spin it slower, it'll take on less air. If you spin it faster, it'll take on more air.
And that's unique only to your machine?
Yes. Yeah, no one else
That custard we made, we ran that at 150 RPMs. RPMs, right? Mm-hmm. We ran, which means the dasher is turning 150 times in a minute.
Yes.
And other ice creams that we made today were 170, and then you made something 2 1/4.
234.
234. And that all has a bearing on what you're going to get out of it, how much you're whipping it.
And does it match the taste?
Right.
When I ran the higher air content, it's because I wanted higher air.
Right.
Question.
Yes.
You mentioned about your different cabinets, 15 pounds and one 6 pounds.
Right.
Do you get more per servings when it's heavier or light?
No, you only get so many scoops out of a gallon. Some are heavier scoops, some are lighter scoops, but that's it.
So it saves the cost.
But
You'll know right away, you'll know in a week that some ice creams you make much more money on than others. But it all, it all goes into the mix. It all evens out. I mean, I don't tell the girls, hey, sell the banana ice cream because we make more money on it. It all comes out. Some ice creams are naturally heavier, and you make less money. But it is what it is.
It costs less to make vanilla ice cream than, say, maple walnut, but you're going to sell 6 times as much vanilla in a store as you are maple walnut. So that's why we're able to come up with an average cost for a tub of ice cream. Butterfat. The proper term should be milk fat. There is Tom Carvel from the Northeast used to say he used only the best butter in his ice cream, and there is no butter in ice cream. It's just, again, one of these terms that is developed in the industry. It should be called milk fat. But Butterfat, the federal government says if you want to call this product ice cream, it must be at least 10% Butterfat. Below 10%, The law is it's got to be called ice milk. Now, most of you have never heard of ice milk. That was a cheap product that they had around when I was growing up. And the way people got around the law is by calling it frozen yogurt or calling it gelato. Both of those are well under 10% fat. Most ice creams, the highest ice cream fat that I've seen in the country is 17% in Southern California. Most ice creams range in the 10 to 12% fat. And a jump from, say, 10 to 12 is a dramatic increase in fat. It doesn't sound like much. It's only 2%. But think of it this way. Whole milk, when you buy whole milk in the supermarket, it's 4% fat. If you buy low-fat milk, it's 2% fat. And there's a world of taste difference between low-fat milk and whole milk. And then skim milk can be 1% or 0. So just going up a small amount of percentage doesn't it makes a big difference in the product. And we usually associate quality of the ice cream with the fat content. At least I used to. Well, I've changed my ways on that one. One because of living in Florida, and the other because of meeting Jeff. And in New York, we had, as I mentioned earlier today, we had the fat wars in New York. If you're selling 14%, well, I'm going to sell 16 just so I can say I'm the richest in New York. That high of fat doesn't really help that much. It can turn the product into greasy tasting. Down here in Florida, where it's 100 degrees and 100% humidity, 16% fat ice cream, and you step outside, it's going to give you a stomach ache, and it's going to make you sweat, and it's going to make you feel awful because it's such a high fat content. So, Jeff, you do something different. You do against the grain. You don't sell 16% fat.
So I'm open about a month, and this guy comes in, and he says he's a distributor for ice cream in the state of Florida. And he looks at my boards up there on the wall, and he says, "You make coconut?" I said, "Yeah." So he says, "Let me try your coconut ice cream." This is a true story. So I scoop out the coconut, and I hand it to him, and he takes a taste, and he goes, 18. And he thought it was 18% butterfat. And I said, oh yeah. And he said, that's a true story. And he said, well, I think this is the best coconut ice cream I've ever had. I want to distribute it throughout Florida. I said, knock your socks off. And he says, all right, the first thing we need 50,000 gallons or whatever. I said, well, that's the end of that. You know, I was only open a month. But I only used 10%. As a matter of fact, well, when you get your mix from the dairy or the supplier, they'll usually offer 10, 12, or 14, right?
Yes.
And I just got 10 because Steve had told me when I first started my relationship with him to get 10. So I've been getting 10. About a year and a half ago, and they deliver it in cases. Usually the bladders that you saw, they come 2 to a box, which is called a case. And you get 5 cases delivered every week or whatever, or 3 cases. And you defrost them if they're frozen, or you put them in the refrigerator and freeze the others. And so I didn't realize anything, and I made my ice cream the next day, and I tasted it. I didn't like it. And it was simply an increase from 10 to 12. They had sent me 12 instead of 10, and I didn't like it at all. And I dumped it because it tasted buttery to me, you know, like buttery, like butter. Imagine taking a stick of butter and just taking a bite. That's not what it was, but that's what it could be. And when this guy said 18, you know, that's what it would be. 18, imagine 18% butterfat. But anyway, so it's what you, now my ice cream, actually your mix today is all 10.
Yes, it is.
So everything we had today was 10. And you can vary the density, with his machine, with the infinite overrun, you can vary the density of the product. So you can, out of 10, you can make what tastes like 14 or 16. With still keeping it at 10 so you're not bloated and laid down. It's a pretty good thing.
So the net effect between the overrun and the fat content is to come out with a balanced ice cream, one that tastes good. The third component, of course, is flavor. If you use cheap flavor, you're going to have a cheap ice cream. If you don't use enough flavor, it's not going to be satisfying. I love coffee ice cream. As you can tell, I love coffee. And I make one of the world's best decaf coffee ice creams that I've ever tasted, and people say it's great because I go under one premise, and that is if I had an ice cream parlor and you walk in and you want coffee ice cream, You're a coffee drinker. If you're a tea drinker, you're not going to order coffee ice cream. It just isn't going to happen. You don't like coffee. So I am making my coffee ice cream for someone who absolutely loves coffee. So it's going to be intense. You're going to say, whoa, that's great. Breyers makes an ice cream for what it is, but you just don't even really know it's coffee. It's kind of a hint of coffee. My ice cream, before I discovered how to do it with a good decaf, could keep you up for 3 days. But it's what I want. I want people to know. The worst thing that can happen in ice cream making is for you to hand someone a spoonful of ice cream and say, how do you like it? And they say, it's great. What is it? And if they can't tell it's blackberry as opposed to strawberry, you haven't done your job right because you haven't put enough flavor in. So between the flavor, the Overrun, and the Butterfat, we're trying to come out with a balanced ice cream, a good eating ice cream. Of the three of those, to me, the most important is the flavor. You want people to walk away and say, whoa, that was a mint chip to die for. I am going to come back and have that flavor. And that's what I know you do with your flavors because I've tasted a lot of them and they're just fantastic. The next term is pasteurization. When you buy this bladder, as Jeff calls it, or the blend, milk, cream, sugar, skim milk, they have taken that from the cow, separated it into heavy cream, regular milk, and skim milk. And then they put it all into a large vat and they heat it up to 140 degrees Fahrenheit and they hold it for a certain amount of time. This kills off all bacteria and that makes your milk safe to buy as opposed to raw milk. Around here we have farms that sell raw milk and it's fine. The trick is you've got to get it within 2 days of it coming out of the cow. You're not going to keep it for a week or now. Some of these milks that I buy are good for a month or so because they've used what they call UHT, ultra high temperature pasteurization. But this is done for you at the dairy, so you don't have to worry about it. You can buy by the butterfat content and the quality that you like and just pour it in the machine, you're good to go.
Now, wasn't it a big thing I saw recently in the ice cream magazines about selling pasteurization machines?
Yes, yeah. There is the most and we recommend a pasteurization machine on our website that's made in the USA. I don't build it, I don't sell it, I recommend it because it's of the quality of an Emery Thompson, and there are people who want to make their own mix. There's a really dumb law in the United States that we all have to live with, and that is the federal government says you can go to the supermarket and you can buy heavy cream that's pasteurized and skim milk that's pasteurized and whole milk that's pasteurized. But when you go to put it into a batch freezer, we want it pasteurized again because you're putting them together. Right. Well, gee, I'd put them together in the refrigerator. What's the difference? But that's the law. It actually goes back to 1929, the Great Depression. And it's still around today. So they say you have to repasteurize. Some people just feel that they can do it better than the dairy, and more power to them. But to me, the creativity is in making the ice cream. Right. The creativity is not in how many gallons of milk.
You could keep going back. You could go milk your own cows and start from there.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. And then you got to pick the right feed for them. And,
and the grass they
yada yada. It drives you nuts. But
so just buy the mix. It's convenient. It's easy. It's relatively inexpensive. How much do you think mix cost? How much?
$55.
For what?
1.5 gallon. For 5 gallon mix.
5 gallons, $15?
No, 55.
50? Oh no, it's much less than that.
I pay 50.
Really?
What is it per gallon?
Well, I get. Somebody got a calculator? I get 10 bladders of 10 quarts each delivered. And it cost me $137.50.
So 100 quarts divided by $37.50. Anyone have a calculator?
It cost me, I think, $13 a gallon, a bladder.
66 per quart, I guess.
2.5 gallons. 2.5. 10 quarts is 2.5 gallons. Cost me roughly $13.75.
And then because
$13 for a bladder.
Yeah.
And then because of the air content, every bladder makes twice its capacity. So 2.5 gallons is going to make 5 gallons of ice cream.
Right, minimum.
Minimum.
I sometimes squeeze 7 out.
Don't tell anyone.
Why?
That would be over 100% overrun.
No, out of 10 quarts to get 7 gallons. Don't forget, I'm adding stuff to it. I'm adding liquids.
That's right, you are adding
I'm adding
stuff.
bottles of liquids and particles to it, so it's naturally bigger.
That's right. And then the other component of that is homogenization. Well, that, again, is done by the dairy. All that's doing is if you take milk out of a cow, the fat is actually in large globules. You really can't see them, but it's technically all broken up. And what the homogenization does is it takes the cream and blasts it through a screen and breaks it down into very fine particles. You might hear someone talk about their ice cream buttered out. That meant that in their ice cream they had little globules of fat. Well, that means they took the raw milk right off the farm and turned it into ice cream. That's the only way that can happen. So that's really not a problem to you. That is just something that the dairy is going to do for you. Today we sanitized the machines before we made ice cream. The easiest way to sanitize a machine is use chlorine. Chlorine is a wonderful way to kill bacteria. If you have a swimming pool, you put chlorine into it to kill any bacteria in your pool. A very simple formula, and I want to make this very clear: a cap, not a cup, but a cap full of bleach to a gallon of water is a perfect sanitizing solution. So 1 cap from the bottle of the bleach and a gallon of water, and you can use that in an emergency to sanitize your machine no matter where you are in the world, or any other food equipment that you want to. You can wipe down your countertops with this solution, or any other equipment that you might be using. There is a company called Stera-Sheen. It's S-T-E-R-A and then S-H-E-E-N, and they make a product called Stera-Sheen Green Label, which is a powder, which is a powdered form diluted of chlorine, and you just put it into your machine with water and it does the whole job for you. And now you're clean and ready to go. Unless you take a 2-hour lunch like Jeff and I might, you don't have to sanitize the machine again until you're ready to make ice cream the very next day. You could run for 8-10 hours, no problem, as long as you just keep making ice cream.
Right, and that's what I do.
And that eliminates all problems. I like to keep, after I drain the sanitized water out of the machine, I usually keep it off on the side in a bucket so that anything that's going to come in contact with the ice cream, a spatula, or sometimes my hands because I'm putting in chips, I can just go into the water with that, and I'm certainly more sanitary than I was. Here we go. Oh boy, here we go. Hardening cabinets. Hardening cabinets, tempering cabinets, and storage cabinets. I'll tell my end, and then Jeff will tell his end. And let me preface by saying that before talking to Jeff, I think I spoke to a lot of people over the years and said, you're going to need about $150,000 to set up an ice cream business. That's why I'm so much in favor of starting off with Italian Ice, because it's just a fraction of that. Jeff has convinced me that in this economy, people really have to start off small, work with what they've got, and generate money. I mean, we're not doing this, we are doing it for fun, but we also want to make money. And as you make money, you can grow the business. You've expanded how many times now?
5 times.
5 times in 3 years.
3 years.
That's amazing. And that's what you're looking to do. When I make ice cream, the ice cream we made today, I pull it out of the machine. It comes out in a soft state. Some people think, oh, it's going to come out of the machine ready to scoop. Well, you couldn't get it out of the machine if it was that hard. If it was rock hard where you were scooping, it would all stay in the machine. It has to flow out of the machine in order for it to be ice cream. So then we take that ice cream, and if I'm a typical ice cream parlor and I've got, say, 15 or 20 flavors, and I want to have those flavors day in and day out, and I don't want to be working the batch freezer every single day, which is the way I would run a business, is to run it every 3rd day. I'm building up an inventory. I'm making not just 1 or 2 tubs of vanilla. I'm making maybe 8 or 10 tubs of vanilla, so that I have enough. This is Wednesday. I have enough to get me through till Sunday, so that I'm not labor intensive. The most expensive component of your ice cream business is going to be labor. going forward. So you've got to keep the labor down
Well, go
as
back
much
to
as
the
possible.
cabinets.
So I am using a hardening cabinet. A hardening cabinet is a cabinet that goes to 30 or 40 below zero. And the reason it goes so cold is they're usually vertical in design, like your refrigerator.
Come here. Come on.
Sadie's getting in the food.
Come on.
Bye, Sadie.
Come on. There you go. Good doggy.
I'm taking my ice cream and I'm freezing it down to 30 below zero. The reason they go that cold is when you open up the door of a cabinet, like you're in your refrigerator. I open up the door at 11 o'clock at night and stare in there, hoping that there's a turkey and a ham and some chocolate, and usually nothing. But you're opening up the cabinet and all the cold is falling out of the cabinet. And then you're packing it with relatively warm ice cream. That cabinet has to work very hard to get it down to temperature. So that's why it's a specialized cabinet and why it goes so cold. By using a hardening cabinet, I now have an inventory of ice cream. In my back room, I have 10 tubs of vanilla that I can, at 10 o'clock tonight, say, well, tomorrow's going to be a bright, sunny day, and we're going to be open from 10 in the morning till 11 at night. We're going to go through 3 tubs of vanilla. I can pull them out of there and put them into my other cabinets, and that becomes my inventory. Jeff is going to tell you what he does, but keep in mind, Jeff is only open from 6 o'clock at night till 10 at night.
I'll get to my story.
So it is a different approach. He's only open for 4 hours.
Nothing to do with it.
Where I'm open 10 hours. So go ahead.
Has nothing to do with it. You don't need it. The only difference is you're going to get your ice cream harder faster. Well, just plan it out. If I make ice cream Wednesday morning, I'm ready to sell it Thursday night. That's all. So I can't sell it Wednesday night. I have other ice cream that I sell Wednesday night. You keep it rotating. You know what those things cost? $6,000 minimum for those hardening cabinets, right?
Yeah,
right.
That's right.
You don't need it. I can open an ice cream store for any one of you in any part of the country for $15,000, soup to nuts, and you'll be in business tomorrow morning, and you'll be making money tomorrow. Isn't that the point? So a hardening cabinet, which is a blast freezer, right? Is that what?
Yeah, blast freezer.
Right, a flash freezer. So you take your ice cream out of the machine and you put it in this blast freezer, and it's ready in 20 minutes, right?
No.
An hour?
8 hours.
8 hours?
8 hours.
Wow. So mine's ready in 15 hours. What? I don't see the point. Anybody see the point in this?
Yeah. The point is that you are very limited in how much inventory you can keep.
Why?
And you're going to have to make... Don't you make ice cream every day?
Every day, every other day?
Yeah. These people don't always have the time to make ice cream every day. You're very labor intensive, and you're making a mistake that all entrepreneurs have to make. Your mistake is you feel that everything has to be done by you. And only you. And I used to be the same way. It took me 40 years to learn that. Everything doesn't have to be done by me. So if I was running an ice cream parlor, I would be making ice cream every 3rd or 4th day,
right.
And I'd be teaching someone else how to make it every 3rd or 4th day. You have to make ice cream.
Well, what does that have to do with a blast freezer?
Because you have to make ice cream every single day, or you'll be out of business.
No.
I can open up an ice cream parlor for, like you said, the low end price. I'll buy a Sears chest freezer.
Right.
But I can only put in about 4 tubs before that thing warms up to be too warm.
So you buy 2 of them.
Okay.
And then you buy 4 of them.
Yeah.
I have 12 of them.
Okay. So you're running 12.
I do $180,000 a year. I have 12 Sears, Kenmore, and garage sale freezers.
And I think if you put a meter on that and saw what your electric bill is compared to one hardening cabinet, you'd be bowled over. 12 little compressors running, and they're very inefficient.
Right, not a hardening cabinet. I would like to have a reach-in, a 100-gallon reach-in, which would be more cost-effective.
I'd rather have a walk-in.
Well, I'm claustrophobic. I don't want to walk in.
Okay. Well,
but that's not the same as a hardening cabinet.
Oh, it is. Yeah.
No, a walk-in freezer is just a big freezer with doors on it.
Now, here's what you can do, and we'll get someone to make the ice cream with you. The reason that the ice cream is at 30 to 40 below zero in the hardening cabinet is because they're all packed in there so tight, and they're all warm, and we got to get them real cold. I can go to 15 to 20 below zero in a walk-in room and do the same job as the hardening cabinet because I'm opening up the door, carrying in my ice cream, closing the door.
Right.
So the cold is staying in there.
Absolutely.
I've got big blowers going,
Right.
which are circulating the air,
Right.
and I've got space between the tubs.
Correct.
So when
You
I do
try
a
to
walk-in-
dip from one of those.
No,
you
I'm-
can't dip those. That's like concrete.
No, I'm using it as a hardening cabinet.
Right. So now you got to take it from there, put it in a Sears $100 freezer.
Yes.
For a day to get it ready to scoop.
Right.
I don't see it.
Because I'm not, again, you're making ice cream every day and I'm not.
I'm not making it every day.
Well, let's say you do. If your volume continues the way it is, that's the way you're set up. The way I am doing it is I'm making the ice cream, 100 gallons of vanilla, and I'm putting it into a room or a
Whoa,
hardening
stop right
cabinet.
there. You're making 100 gallons of vanilla.
I'm picking an arbitrary number.
Well, how many gallons are you talking about of vanilla?
I'll say 50 if it.
So how long does it take you to make 50 gallons of vanilla ice cream?
Hour and a half.
No way. No, on a 44-quart machine.
Yeah.
Well, who's got a 44-quart machine?
Well, you're going to get one.
But on a
I'm
regular
making-
machine, you're not going to make 50 gallons of the same product.
I'm making as much as I can for what the demand is because I'm also wholesaling to restaurants.
Okay,
So I'm making as much as I can, and I put it into the room where it's very cold and it gets rock hard. Yeah, you couldn't scoop it with a hammer and chisel it so hard.
Right.
So I look at the weather. The most important thing about business, the ice cream business, and the ices business is be weather dependent. What's it going to look like Thursday? What's it going to look like Friday? Are there any fairs going on over the weekend? So what I'm doing is I'm saying tomorrow and the next day are going to be high volume days. I'm going to take 6 tubs and put them into the Sears chest freezer at 0, and I'll have 2 tubs out front in front of the public.
So hang on, sorry to jump in. So the Sears freezer would be the tempering cabinet?
Yes.
So you're getting it to warm up a little bit so it's easy to scoop.
Yeah, that tempering cabinet isn't doing a darn thing but sitting there. It's just sitting there at 0, saying, hey, it's a nice day, but it's warming it up from 30 below up to 0. And then as the day progresses, your dipping cabinets are double-decker. There's a tub you see and one down below, whether you see it or not. You can use either cabinet. And so what I'm doing is I'm scooping from this tub. This one is ready to come up at 4 this afternoon. And as soon as I move that up, I take another one from the tempering cabinet or room and put it down below. So I can continue to go through ice cream no matter what my volume is. So it's all a matter of size. And I agree with you, you don't have to do it at the start. But to say never is
I
not
just don't
correct.
believe in it. Like probably our next topic, too.
Question on it.
Yeah.
I don't want to. It may sound stupid,
No.
but
That sounds
I
stupid.
always thought that the deep freezer, the black freezer, has something to do with prevention of ice crystals. That's not true.
That is also very correct that the faster and colder you freeze the ice cream after you make it in the batch freezer, the smaller the ice crystals be. If these things were not necessary, my customer Haagen-Dazs wouldn't have spent $50 million on a new hardening tunnel that goes to 120 below 0. It's a spiral, and the ice cream comes in at 22 degrees and it comes out at 50 below, and it takes about 15 minutes. And they just wouldn't spend that money if they didn't have a purpose. Their purpose is volume. They have to ship a lot of ice cream out. So again, you're not wrong. It's just a matter of as
you
the
can
store
get
grows.
there in a Ford Focus and you can get there in a Bentley.
No, that's not
The
correct.
hardening process is very important. You can't just put it right into like 100 degrees or
100 degrees?
No, no.
I mean 0 or.
Yes, you
Yes,
can.
you can.
That's what I do.
Yes, you can. But
What's the purpose for the hardening?
because I've had people say to me, Taylor has come to me and said, buy my Taylor batch freezer because you don't need a hardening cabinet.
Really?
And I will finish the statement just like Taylor. I'll say, buy my Emery Thompson batch freezer. You don't need a hardening cabinet. If you promise me that everything you make today you'll sell within 3 days. Because within 3 days you're going to have ice crystals in your ice cream. Because ice cream is sensitive to heat shock, and the hardening cabinet protects against the heat shock. You end up with smaller crystals, and at those temperatures it'll stay forever. Yes?
Well, question for Jeff. What if you opened a second location about an hour away from your current location, and you're making ice cream in your current location?
He can't do it.
Taking the ice cream.
I think he prefaced that with saying, I have a question for Jeff.
Okay.
So, would you consider it if you were taking the ice cream to that second location that is 30 or hour away from the where you're making ice cream?
Well, I would get a refrigerated truck. What? Is that the wrong answer? That's what you do. You get a refrigerated truck. But everybody has to do that. It has nothing to do with a hardening cabinet.
Oh, it does. Because now you're running 2 locations and you're having
So
to
you mean say you're going to take it out, drive an hour away in this Florida heat, and have it just sitting on your back seat?
No, but I'm going to have it at 40 below zero in a refrigerated truck.
In a refrigerated truck.
And I'm only going to go over there once a week. You're going over there every day.
Okay. Okay.
You can have a refrigerated trailer, which is more cost effective than a refrigerated truck.
He's still got to go over there every day because he's making it every day. Yes?
Okay, so this glass freezer is like minus 30 or 40. This Kenmore freezer is like 0. But you said earlier the scooping temperature is like 06.
6 above.
So you're going right
And that's the
from
storage
regular
cabinet.
0 to scooping, aren't you, Jeff?
No, my freezers run about minus 10.
But you're scooping right from there?
I'm scooping right from there.
So you don't worry about the scooping being 06 or it's okay?
No.
Okay.
If it's too hard, I put it higher up in the freezer. If it's a hard flavor.
Okay.
Some flavors are naturally hard. If they're naturally hard, I take it away from the corners in the freezer. I bring it from the bottom to the top. You know all these things. A straight vanilla ice cream, which I don't make, of course, but that would be a hard ice cream. That would freeze like a rock. Chocolate, I find, freezes less than that. It's more temperate. So you just move them in the freezers. It's just a difference in philosophy, I guess. But, I started on a budget, and I run a boot camp, as you know, and I want to teach people how to get into the business because I have people calling me saying, I've still only got $85,000, so I'm a little nervous about going into business. And that's not the way to go, I think. I think you want to get in the business, open your door, start making money. And that's what I profess and teach. Let's get started, let's make money, and let's have fun. And all the expenses I try to cut down. I saw in this room, I saw a book that somebody wrote, pretty prominent guy, and I just leafed through it, and it had the cost to open an ice cream store. And it was on one page, equipment, supplies, stuff like that. And I looked to the bottom, and this is one page, and the title was, How Much Does It Cost to Open My Ice Cream Store? And it was $197,775. And everybody, show me who's got that. We don't have it. But yet we want to open a business. You're all here because you want to open a business. And you want to open it sooner than later. And you don't have a lot of money. The money is, you're not going to have more money next year than you have this year. Things come up. So what I want to do is I want to get you in business, and I want to get you in business fast, economical, and make a great product. Nobody makes better ice cream than I do. Nobody in the whole world. I don't think anybody makes better ice cream than I do. You have.
Oh, you laugh. You have to believe that you make the world's best ice cream.
I believe it.
People used to come to me and say, "Who makes the best ice cream?" And I've got all these different customers. I think, "Oh, gee, is it Peppermint Park? Is it Byright? Is it Jeff?" And then I realized I had the wrong answer. It wasn't somebody else. It was me. I make the world's best ice cream. Of course, I'm lying to myself.
So he put
like
Sharknado ice cream out on. But anyway, that's my goal. I may be wrong, and I may not be a Haagen-Dazs guy, even though I love their ice cream. But I'll put my ice cream up against any of them, and I'll put my profit up against them from my level to their level, all things being equal.
A compromised position that I have adapted would be, in talking to Jeff, is if you were outfitting this room right now as an ice cream parlor and all the walls are open, I know you're going to need additional equipment. Jeff just told you right now he's running 10, 12 Sears cabinets. That means extra outlets. If you try to put an outlet in after the walls are up, it's going to cost you $200.
$75.
If you think of
an
it,
outlet.
if you think of it today, it's cheap to put it in before the walls go up. So you plan. I do in my business. Someone asked me the other day, how long does it take to build a machine? It takes 4 days. to actually assemble it. But how long does it really take? It takes about 7 months. We have a foundry in Wisconsin. We have another sheet metal building across the street. I have to always plan 2 years in advance generally, and 7 months in advance for what I expect sales to be in order to meet them when they come. So what I would like to do, because your finances are tight, everybody's money's tight, and that is, think about, just plan where you're going to be in 5 years. Where do you want to be? What do you expect? And then if there's something like electric or space, if you say, well, in 5 years I wish I had a walk-in freezer, let's think about we could put it out there and what kind of roof we'd have to put out there, and not necessarily build it, but have it in your 5-year plan if that's where it's going to go. Run the electric lines, run the plumbing lines. If Jeff had known when he had the CB350 that he was going to need, within a short amount of time, a 24 quart, he could have run the plumbing lines and electric for it, and then he spent $80, and then that's it. Don't buy it. Don't buy it till you need it. So yeah, money's tight. The other thing about money, and then we'll move on to some other things here, is nobody is going to extend you credit for the first year. We are unfortunately labeled as being in the food business. And anybody starting up a restaurant, and this is why the failure rate is very high in restaurants, is they go out and they spend all the money on the tables and a $5,000 cash register, and all sorts of exotic stuff, and then they have no money left to buy the meat and the poultry and the vegetables. Same thing with you. You need, I would say, $5,000 minimum cash in the bank that you can work on to go buy your supplies. As you buy the mix from your local supplier, and you've been doing it for a year, yeah, they're going to give you that 30. I mean, you don't have to stand there nowadays with cash and pay the driver.
I do.
You do?
I do.
Okay. But with your volume, if you wanted net 30 nowadays, you could do it.
Oh, sure. But I have no bills.
But in the startup, they need cash.
Yeah.
So that's
I
very
like
important.
operating that way. I think that's a good way to operate.
Oh, yeah.
The driver comes Tuesday night, drops off 100 quarts of cream, and I write him a check.
Yeah.
Well, the girl writes him a check.
No bills.
No bills.
So that's people say, what's the most important thing about starting a business? I say $5,000 cash in the bank. If that means buying a CB350 instead of a 24 quart, so be it. Because again, like you, it gets you into the business. We want you to get into business and make money. That's what it's all about. Let's see, product temperatures. Did someone else? Yes, a question.
Jerry.
Go ahead.
Let me just step back one step. On the hardening cabinet, Jeff, close your ears. The hardening cabinet versus the walk-in. It sounds like that if you had your druthers, you would probably pick the walk-in over a hardening cabinet because of volume that you can put in and space that you can keep it at, so that it works better.
I'll take a walk-in any day over a hardening cabinet, because the hardening cabinets are electricity hogs. They're air cooled, and if I had a hardening cabinet in this room, which I do not, I could run this 73-degree room up to 90 in about an hour and a half with the air conditioning set as it is. They are a nightmare on that. I'd much rather have a walk-in.
Now, $6,000, $7,000 been thrown around on a hardening cabinet. A walk-in is
10?
15.
At the most. And if you go that route, one little quick trick, because walk-in facilities are 4x8 panels that snap together. And so if you find a restaurant that's gone out of business and you can buy their refrigerator walk-in, you can turn it into a hardening room by putting a larger condensing unit outside or up on the roof. But one little trick, when you're talking temperatures this cold, if I put that on this floor, it's going to go right through this floor, through the concrete, and in the dead of winter, in the dead of summer, heat of summer, I'm going to be refrigerating about 6 feet of dirt down to 30 below zero. The cold is that intense. So one little trick, if you buy a used walk-in, there's a product called Formular. It's sold at Home Depot, and it's sheets of insulation. It's pink. It's about 2 inches, and you put that down, put your box on top of it, and you'll never have that problem. But otherwise, no, a walk-in has got so many uses. I mean, if If you were buying nuts, 5 or 10 cases of it, and you could freeze them, it would be a real convenience. You wouldn't do it unless you got a hell of a price, because now you're tying up 10 cases worth of dollars.
You can make a third of the walk-in just for a cooler for your dairy products also.
Yeah, that can be done as you can split it in half. I did that with Rutgers University years ago, where we built a walk-in that had 3/4 walls and then a curtain. And in this area was refrigerated, and the next section was freezer. And it worked out beautifully. There's a lot of things you can do. It's a matter of space. If you're building in New York City, all this goes out the window because they're charging you by the square inch. Yeah.
I have a little, just in the defense of the person that wrote the book, I know you talk about things like they put down 2 neon signs. They did not start with a smaller machine, they started with a larger machine. So some of that cost can be cut just because of
25%, 50%.
Well, I don't know. I'm just saying that's what a grease trap was $5,000 in their book.
He's still looking at 200 grand to open a store.
Cut in half the machine price because they didn't start with the small machine, 6/4. I don't know if they started at 24 or 12, but it wasn't 6.
Well, Jeff and I we don't disagree. The lowest price you can get.
It is less.
Oh yeah, the lowest price you can get in for is what you want to do.
Right.
I think they were
That makes.
overshooting it just to make sure. And me talking to that person, they said you had to have money in the slow months, especially your first year over the winter time. They accounted for all that.
There you can be. It's very easy to be too cautious, and you never get there.
But you understand, they have to be though because they're putting out the book, who their name is, and people.
Well, that's a matter of opinion. I mean,
it's like people in Congress, they can't make certain statements. They got to be cautious.
well, I guess it all depends on whose book you want to read. That's all.
I'm not saying I agree with everything.
No, it's okay. You're entitled. Everyone in this room has their decisions to make. My philosophy is I'd like to get in business. Now, the day I opened my store, that very first $10 bill that came in, I was making money. And that's what I want.
I hung out through the store before, So I think it's a nice place now. Proudly, you did a great job. But this person was...
Thanks, Dad.
This person, I think this guy was overshooting, though, just to be on the cautious side. That's why
I think everything in the store, you look at it and say, how important is this to me?
Yeah.
It just absolutely drives me bonkers when I see someone buying a $7,000 cash register that tells them how many butterscotch sundaes they made when they could get a cigar box. It's still
I
cash
ran it without a cash register for a year.
Yeah, you just don't need it. I do make an exception, and this is not so much a sales pitch for my own machines. We'll take out the Emery Thompson name and substitute Cappigiani. If I was setting up an ice cream parlor, I would be buying a new batch freezer. Cappigiani if you want. Why? Because it's the most important thing in your business. If the cash register goes down, so what? You put the money in your pocket. If a chair breaks, you remove it. If a dipping cabinet falters, you probably have a backup one, a second one. You just have fewer flavors that day. But if you can't make ice cream and ices, you can't do business. So it's the most critical piece of equipment. When I was a salesman walking around unbelievable neighborhoods in New York, I drove a new car. I drove a Chevy Impala, and I also had a Halliburton aluminum briefcase. That briefcase cost $400. Why I bought it, I don't know. But finally, I got older and wiser, and I realized the Halliburton briefcase it was flashy, but it was not selling batch freezers. What was selling batch freezers was a single piece of literature saying, here's what my machine looks like. But that piece of literature or that briefcase was useless unless I could get to Brooklyn or to Staten Island or to Long Island. If I couldn't get there to make the sale, I had no business. So I didn't have the luxury of driving an old wreck. I had to drive a reliable car. So the most important thing to me as a salesman was my car. Now, it didn't have to be a Bentley, but it did have to be a reliable car. In the ice cream business, all those other peripheral pieces of equipment, scoop brakes,
Sure.
Or anything
Obviously,
else.
it's the batch freezer that's the lifeblood of the business.
Yeah, and I'm talking whether you buy a Taylor or a Stolting or an Emery Thompson or a Cappigiani, It's the heart and soul of the business. Without it, you don't have a business. I just can't imagine. I mean, my machines are unlike anybody else. They last 45 years or longer. I get a lot of phone calls from machines built in the 1930s and 1940s. These are 70, 80-year-old machines, and they're calling up and asking, do they have parts? And I say, sure. But then I get someone calling up and saying, hey, I just got an Emery Thompson, and it was built in 1982. And I'm going, well, it's probably going to last a long time, but you're risking the business. A friend of mine, Kid Henningsen, he tells a great story. He went to work out of college for a car dealership, Nissan, which is, it was Nissan. They used to be Datsun or something. And a guy comes in with a Lamborghini. And he's a young, out of college. And the Lamborghini, the guy wants $7,000 for it. It's a $240,000 car. He couldn't shell out the money fast enough because it was a Lamborghini. I mean, what could go wrong? It's a Lamborghini. Guy takes the money, he leaves. They put it up on the rack. The car has been, they used to call it Z-Bark back then. It was you sprayed this heavy tar all over the underside of your car to keep it from rusting. They removed some of the Z-Bark, and they found out that car had been in salt water, in a flood, in a hurricane, and the whole body was rusting out. But how could that be? It's a Lamborghini. And I hear that all day long. People say, hey, what can go wrong? It's an Emery Thompson. Yeah, it left here as an Emery Thompson, but how the person took care of it makes all the difference in the world. I mean, when they sell cars to the New York Police Department, the Crown Vic.
Right.
I had a Crown Vic.
Right.
I loved that car. If I drive the Crown Vic, it's going to last 9 years.
Right.
If the New York City Police Department drives the exact same
3.
car, 3 years if they're lucky.
Right.
It's how it's taken care of. Yes?
Do you need a hardening cabinet if you're going to just do water ice?
No, you don't need any other equipment except just the Sears chest freezer to do water ice. That's the beauty of the business, a batch freezer and a cheap Sears freezer.
How many containers does that freezer hold for the water ice?
I don't
Depends on
know.
the size of the freezer you buy.
Huh?
They come in a bunch of sizes. That one over there is 6 foot.
What I'm saying is that round container that you have,
Yeah, I never measured how many it would hold.
you don't know it.
No.
Okay, and is it legal to make this water ice in your home rather than, or do you have to
Check local laws. It's very hard to get a business going in your house when it's food.
Yeah, I live in a gated community, and they won't even let us change a rose bush
Yeah, very
without
hard.
getting permission. Drives us nuts. You have to. That's strictly local. There's parts
But
of
there's
Brooklyn.
other ways to get around that too.
Yeah.
You can piggyback off of other businesses. You can rent a room from somebody. That's how I started. I rented a room in a gym.
or any kind of, it doesn't have to be a kitchen?
Well, you have to be inspected. The health department inspects you, but that's how I started. An 8-foot by 10-foot room in a gym, a back room.
Again, as low cost as you can do it.
Absolutely.
How does water ice sell in the Midwest and places like that? It doesn't seem as prevalent.
It's growing dramatically, and since we moved down here from New York 8 years ago, the vast majority of my batch freezers for Italian, we call it Italian ice. In Philadelphia, it's water ice. The vast majority of my machines are in the South. For every machine I sell, I put about 11 people into business. So I have created thousands and thousands of great jobs of people working and selling Italian ice because it's so inexpensive.
That's
a
right.
batch freezer and a storage freezer, and that's it. It's a wonderful way to get into business. And so throughout the South, Ken, you're from where? Birmingham?
Indiana originally,
Indiana, and then...
Alabama, Tennessee.
Yeah, and these are places that never heard of Italian. Hell, they never even heard of an Italian, let alone Italian ice. But they're learning because it's such a great product. Even California hardly knew Italian ice, but it is growing so fast. Now, we're in where you're talking about, it's seasonal. It's very seasonal. It's May 1st to Labor Day. Just a little story if we have time. It's the darndest thing about Italian ice and ice cream. Most ice cream parlors, and Jeff will say he's always the exception, he is, but most ice cream parlors, sales drop off dramatically the day after Labor Day, and they pick up again next week
And that's
after
busy
Columbus
season.
Day. That's your busy
Busy season.
Everybody else, it's a slow season because they've just come through the summer. The parents have just sent the kids back to school, and there's something about Labor Day. I used to go on vacation the day after Labor Day because the beach is still 80 degrees, and the sun is still out, and the sand is still warm. But nobody goes to the beach because it's the day after Labor Day. I got to go up into the attic and get the winter clothes out. And it's a mindset that I've talked to so many people about over the years, and they say, yeah, the mindset is I can't eat ice cream after Labor Day. And then sometime around Columbus Day, I say, boy, I sure miss my mint chip. And they go back out again, and then it picks up. The only time ice cream doesn't sell is when it's raining. I would hate to have an ice cream parlor in Seattle. And think about it. If it's snowing out, you walk to your car. And you can eat an ice cream while you're walking to your car, and people do. If it's raining, what do? You run to your car.
You're so right.
If it rains, you might as well just close the doors. No one's coming.
You're so right.
So don't pick a rainy area.
I don't know how you knew that.
Once in a while, I know something.
You're so right. You're so right.
Batch freezer?
A batch freezer is the term for what we call these machines.
Okay.
And it's a batch because we're putting all our ingredients in at once. We're processing it and then taking it all out at once.
Making a batch of ice cream.
Yeah, when you make a batch of apple pie, you don't just make one portion. You make the whole pie and take it all out of the oven. So that's why it's got its name, is a batch freezer. It's a very old term. It goes back as long as time.
Is a storage cabinet a dipping cabinet? Is that what you're...
No.
Where I don't see dipping cabinets on here.
I didn't even put it there.
Oh.
You go ahead.
What?
You don't use a dipping cabinet.
No, I don't.
Again, it depends on the setup of your store. There's no wrong answer.
No.
I
think there is a wrong answer.
There are two types of dipping cabinets. There's visual display cabinets, and then if you saw in my kitchen, what I call the old-fashioned floppy door cabinet where the lid flops over. I've listened to a lot of people over the years, and the more I listen to them, the less I like the visual display cabinets, like you see at Baskin-Robbins, because people tend to congregate around it. They stand there and they stare. And
want samples.
They want samples, and they're trying to make a decision. If you have great-looking signs that people can look up at and say, I want mint chip, and then your server goes and gets the mint chip, that's the most efficient way to sell ice cream. And whether you do it with a serving cabinet, which I call a dipping cabinet that you can't see in, or your way, it doesn't matter. It's the same idea. You can give them too many choices. Well, it comes about because of me growing up in Pelham, New York. Again, I wasn't on the basketball team, and I didn't make the football team. I was not gigantic. And Baskin-Robbins had what I called survival of the biggest. After a basketball game or a football game, everybody would run down to the Baskin-Robbins, and they have no lines. They have no direction of people coming into the store. You just, 20 teenagers assault the Baskin-Robbins. And whoever the biggest and whoever is the tallest is going to get served first. And me, I'm 5'8" on a good day. I'm in the back going, hi, can I get some ice cream here? And that's one problem I have with dipping cabinets. And the other is, my gosh, you hear people say, well, I'd like to try the peppermint. I'd like to try the strawberry. And they're trying everything, and maybe eventually they buy. But in the meantime, 10 people are lined up and back. And me being a New Yorker, I just get totally pissed off if I've got to stand in line for anything. And usually we'll walk out. I want that line to flow.
Plus the fact that every time you open a dipping cabinet, the air is going right across 16 tubs of ice cream.
Yeah, it's killing it.
And they don't look that good after an hour or two. And visually, you don't want that flavor, even though it's what you might want. It looks terrible. And you get ice crystals, and the temperatures are crazy to control. It just, I don't see any purpose in a dipping cabinet.
The sun beats down on it. They don't work well. In fact, with Italian ices, we always use the floppy door cabinet. You're in New York, you're in Astoria, Queens, and you go into an old-time pastry shop. You go into Rispoli pastry shop. And my wife says I'm a sexist. I don't mean to be, but you go in there, and the server says, "Would you like what ice would you want?" And I say, "Oh, give me a cherry lemon ice." We're so lemon ice that we call every flavor lemon ice. Give me a raspberry lemon ice. And the server flops back the lid, and she's down in there and reaching in, and you see her hand moving like this, and then she comes up with a scoop of cherry ice and puts it in the cup and hands it to me. What she's actually doing is Rispoli's not using any artificial flavors. So a little puddle of flavor has formed in the center of the tub. She's remixing it before she hands it to you. That's perfectly fine. I mean, I love it because it tells me it's a real fresh ice. But if that was in a visual display cabinet,
never
ew, that one's falling apart.
Right.
And look at that one over there. It's awful. And
the germs, woo.
Yeah.
Don't even want to go there.
Some people might say, I've got to have it for display.
Visual.
I've got to have it because I'm in a mall and it's the only way I'm going to attract attention. I still don't buy it. I think
Good
great
for you.
signs. See how my signs hang down with the stainless steel? I once made a sign and it mimicked an ice cream parlor. It had stainless steel signs and they were all hooked together. So I could take down one if I wanted, and I had instead of all different flavors, mint chip, butter pecan, strawberry, I had names of customers. So if you fell out of favor with me, I would take down your name and put up another one. But that sign was great because if all of a sudden I don't have maple walnut, I just take the sign down, and then nobody's asking for maple walnut today, hopefully.
You said you were going to tell about renting. When you first started out, renting a space from someone? Because I was saying I was looking into renting space at a church or something like that.
Right.
To get started.
Right.
Nice idea. I never thought of that.
Sure.
That's a great idea.
The department told me about that.
Well, that's what I did. I rented space in a gym, a room in a gym, and I made my ice cream and then went around, well, that's what we were talking about, wholesaling it.
Yeah, right.
And Steve told me what to do when I was sitting in the back row 3 years ago. He said, wholesale in the beginning and get your product out there and meet the chefs and everything. And for me, it didn't work. It was a disaster. The restaurants loved my ice cream. I went around. I had 5, 6 restaurants buy it. But the labor of going around 3 times a week, every other day, to look at your ice cream and see what total bad disarray it was in because they didn't put the covers on and the girls didn't, or the guys, didn't know how to scoop it, and the water was left in it, and now it turned to ice. They just destroyed the product. So I pulled it out and went retail.
I'm thinking about trying with local markets. You know, we have some local markets in the area, just seeing about selling pints and things like that. I was talking to someone who said that they thought maybe I could do it on a consignment basis because there would be so much risk involved for the market.
Mm-hmm. Let me mention something about markets, and then just real quick, I'll tell about air and water, and then we'll wrap it up because you have another flavor to make.
Well, I could or couldn't.
I'd love you to make another flavor.
Well, I don't have to.
Well, I want the ice cream. You make great ice cream.
Okay.
Going to local markets and selling to markets. People go into, say, here, again, the supermarket down here is Publix. If you went into Publix, it's a really tough call. They might say they love your ice cream. And they'll put your ice cream in, and you think you're going great, and you go out and buy a Mercedes and more equipment, and Jeff comes along. And Jeff is 5 cents less per pint than you.
You're out.
They never heard of you. They have no loyalty because the markup or the profit margin in a supermarket is about 1%.
But these are like local convenience stores.
That's what you want to go to. You want to. We call them delis in New York. In the Hispanic neighborhood, it's called a bodega. There's another guy over in New Jersey who does only Indian markets. These are the places that I want, or the health food stores, because if your product is good and it's selling, it makes them look good. They know they can go buy Susie Q's ice cream at this health food store, and so it drives people to Susie Q's. The store owner makes money, you make money. The consignment idea is not bad because you're confident it's going to sell. But I'd rather have 50 little businesses like that than one Whole Foods. Whole Foods to me is really scary. They're Publix. They're Publix on. They're the supermarket on steroids, because if you go in there and go in with an objective eye, not boy, I wish I had my ice cream in here. Go in there and look around. What you're going to see is they have about 40 different ice creams in Whole Foods, and if you go back in a month, 39 or 39 of them are gone, right? Because Whole Foods, their concept, which is very good, will try anything once. And if you're a big success, great. But your ego takes over and you go, I don't know how many people have walked in here. I'm in Whole Foods. And I'm thinking, oh, God help you. You're in for trouble. And that to me is one of the biggest problems in business is your own darn ego. Don't let it go to your head that you've gotten into this place. Pat yourself on the back after you've been there for 5 years, because they are all about price. But the little mom and pop businesses, they're wonderful. They're happy to have you there. You're helping them. It's just great. It's a great way to expand your business or to get your business going. And every time you walk in with something new, they're really thrilled because, more that we can sell.
Okay, thanks.
Real quickly, because I want Jeff to make this last product and we're running out of time. On the machinery itself, just a couple of terms that confuses people. Air versus water. On the little machines, they're all air-cooled. On bigger machines, they come water-cooled and air-cooled. What does that mean? Your home refrigerator has got a teeny tiny compressor in it compared to what we use. And your home refrigerator is sucking in cool air from the front and is blowing it out the back as hot air. The blowing it in with a fan, the sucking in motion, is cooling the engine of your refrigerator or the compressor. And it's doing it by air, and it's so tiny you don't even notice it. On the countertops, they are also air-cooled. They're sucking in cool air and blowing out hot air, but it's really not going to affect this room very much. When you get into the larger machines, those compressors are so big, they're capable of, one of those compressors could air condition all my offices. That's how big they are. They're also the most efficient in the world. They're also USA made by Copeland. There's just nothing better. But in air-cooled, they generate heat. And so you've got to compensate the air conditioning for the heat that it's throwing out. The other way to build it is water-cooled. Now, water-cooled, it's off right now. It's not using any water. As soon as Jeff turns on the refrigeration switch, a small amount of water is going to start flowing around the engine, cooling it, and then it's going to throw it down the drain. Perfectly clean water down the drain. Well, why would we do that? Because water is expensive. They now charge you sewer tax. But the small amount of water that machine is using, whether it's doing a batch freezer or air conditioning all my offices, the small amount of water that it's going to use is fractional compared to running central air conditioning to remove the heat out of this room. So 90% of my machines leaving here, of the bigger ones, are water cooled. They're very efficient. It makes a lot of sense. And the only time you use air cooled is if you have no choice. The lady up in Massachusetts who was on a cranberry bog, the city said, you're not going to put warm water, return line water, 108 degrees, into our cranberry bog. You'll ruin it. Los Angeles, you cannot use water-cooled equipment. There's a restriction. The island of Jamaica, there's not enough water available to throw it away like that. We need it for the crops and for drinking. So your decision to buy, or you're on a septic tank, and just out in the middle of nowhere, and you don't want to fill that septic tank with fresh, clean water. It's meant to be filled with dirty water. So your decision on air-cooled or water-cooled will be made with my assistance depending on your location. Also, one last little trick you'll see, I'll get to you. Here at my sink, and I hope no health department people are watching, my water-cooled return line is going to my sink. That water is 108 degrees. It's warm. It's perfectly clean. In the Emery Thompson, it's gone through all pure copper lines. I mean, it's perfectly drinkable. I'm using it as an initial rinse of my tubs and my utensils and everything else. Most health departments want it to go to an indirect waste. So when the health department guy comes in, it's in an indirect waste. When he leaves, I take the hose and put it in the sink.
Mine's okay. I run your Emery Thompson from my faucet into the machine, and then it comes back into my mop sink.
Yeah,
that's fine.
That's perfect.
Run like a radiator system and just have water, a pump and just have water.
Yeah, I thought about that too. Recycling.
It's called a recirculating system. They cost about $7,000. They're very effective. It would sit outside behind that door, and it would be filled with glycol, and it would be like an air conditioning unit. It would take the glycol and circulate it around. At $7,000, it's a great idea once you get past 3 machines. Before 3 machines, it doesn't pay. But ultimately, yes, you start off with water-cooled machines. You can go to that system and put it in. You had a question over here? Yes.
How much water does it run through? How fast?
It depends. How much water you use will depend on the time of the year. In New York,
Depends on the temperature of the input.
The groundwater, yes. So if the groundwater is 80 degrees in the summer, it's going to use more water than if the groundwater is 45 degrees.
Yeah.
But it opens and closes automatically. So that in the wintertime, it's only opening up a little bit. In the summer, it's opening up a little more. It'll automatically adjust itself by the temperature of the water. It's no great shakes. Refrigeration has worked like this forever. It's not my invention. But it's very effective. Yes?
Are you talking, how many gallons though, approximately?
At the worst, a half a gallon of water a minute. And it's only going to be on for about 8 or 9 minutes. Once we turn off that refrigeration switch and we're taking the product out, or if it's just sitting there, it's not using any water. And again, it's all clean water. And, again, from an environmental standpoint, it sounds, what a waste of water. But it's a lot better than burning fossil fuel, because fossil fuel is going up by the minute in price. Yes?
Is there such a thing as a remote compressor?
We do it only on the very biggest machine. Otherwise, I don't like to do remote compressors. That would mean that the engine is outside and the batch freezer is in here. That means that for this setup, we'd have about 50 feet of Freon lines that would have to be run to get to the unit. That'd probably be about $2,000. And now I've got 50 feet of potential Freon leaks. Whereas if I build the machine here, the distance from the compressor to the freezing cylinder is that. At most 18 inches of potential problem, which is 0. So I'd much rather have that. Universal Studios, though, I put them in, like I said, 1991, 92. They've got about a 50-foot run, and they've never had a Freon leak. It's the skill of the installer at that point, but it can be done. Anybody else? Single phase versus three phase real quick. Your power in North America is in your house. You have plug-in electricity. You plug in a blender, you plug in a hairdryer, you plug in a toaster. That's 115 volt. You also have in your house 220 volt. That's what your central air conditioning runs on. Your clothes dryer runs on 220 volt. If you have an electric oven, it's running on 220 volt. So in your house, you have 2 voltages. Heavy equipment, powerful, efficient equipment runs on 220 volt. 115 volt, that hairdryer, man, that thing is just unbelievably inefficient. It's burning electricity, so your meter's going like this. That batch freezer is going around like that, much slower. So you want to run on 220, but then your house is what we call single phase. It's 2 wires of power. And there's a point for telling you this. It's 2 wires of power. It's 220 volt. It's everywhere. You can run one of these machines in your living room in Alaska. You can run one of these machines in Guadalajara. You can run it up in Banff, Canada, in single phase. In this building, I'm going through a lot of electricity, a whole lot of electricity. So the power company said, he's going to burn a lot of electricity. We got to bring him more power, but we can only bring it through so many lines. We're going to give him 3 lines of power instead of just 2, and we call that 3-phase. It's only available in certain locations. It's available here out at the airport. The guy next door didn't have it. He took 1.5 years to get 3-phase put in. So your chances of having 3-phase are kind of low. 3-phase used to be common 30, 40 years ago. You'd call up the power company and say, I'm putting in an ice cream parlor. I want 3-phase power. And they'd say, hey, right on, man. That's great. Because we want to build more power plants. We want you to grow. We're going to expand. Now it's just the opposite. So they're not going to bring, if I don't have 3-phase next door, it's going to cost $40,000 to bring it in. So you want a single phase machine is the point. The other thing is single phase, again, will run anywhere in North America. 3-phase will only run where there's 3-phase. So if you bought a 3-phase machine today and you go into a store that in the church and they have 3-phase, you're golden. But then later on you say, I'm going to buy my own store, or I'm going to rent my own store. Right. So you rent your own store and there's no 3-phase. Right. Your machinery in 3-phase just became a boat anchor. Right. 20 years ago, you would own your own building. So maybe you'd put 3-phase in. Why would you want it? Because I need 200 amps to run this ice cream parlor in single phase. I only need 100 amps in 3-phase. But nobody owns their own building anymore. They can't afford it. They rent. So Jeff opens up this great business, and he's got his machinery, and 5 years later the landlord goes, if he can do it, I can do it. Didn't you say that about me making ice cream? And the risk is his landlord isn't going to renew his lease and think he's going to become an ice cream business. Well, he always fails. So you want a single-phase machine, and then we'll decide whether it's air or water. Now, here's your problem. The used machines on the market, there's about 3 Emery Thompsons at eBay today. They're mostly older than me and are very thoroughly worn out and are of materials that are not going to pass inspection nowadays. They don't have NSF or UL. There are 92, as of this morning, Cappigianis. The Italians, which is Taylor, Stolting, Electrofreeze, and Cappigiani, they only build in 3-phase. Why? Because in Italy, 3 phases are single phase. It's the norm. So when they ship a machine over here, or when you buy a used 3-phase machine, they're telling you, you got to go out and buy a transformer. Wow. It's called a phase converter. They're $3,000. They have an average lifespan of 3 years. So every 3 years, you're going to spend $3,000 just to keep this machine running. So, and they don't work well. I won't even use them on my machine. Someone calls up and says, I got a 3-phase machine. I got a single-phase location. I'm sorry, but you're out of luck. You shouldn't have bought that used machine. So those machines are not going to do you any good. Why do they do that? Maybe it's the arrogance of the Italians. You're going to buy it our way or no way. Well, I'm in 172 countries. I spoke to, last night at 8:30 last night, I spoke to a gentleman in Somalia. I really wanted to say, well, can't we trade this for a few hostages? But stop, Steve, stop. I kept my mouth shut, and I talked about the machines. And when we build his machine, it is going to be built. He is 440 volt. That's one big change. 50 hertz. That's another change. And 3-phase. We'll build the machine from the ground up to match the voltage in Somalia. Huh. And we do that in 172 countries. Nobody else does it. At
no additional cost, too.
$550.
Really? That's it?
Yeah, that's what the special motors and compressors cost.
Pretty cool.
We build it to where it's going. The Italians say, hey, we're Italian. Love it or leave it. You know, take it or go away. And I just don't take that attitude in business. With that all said, I think we're done.
Okay.
Let's make some ice cream.
No other questions, right?
One more.
Oh,
one more, yes.
Oh, come on.
I think the little things that you say in reference to the freezer.
But very important.
Yes, exactly. About certain ice creams need to go in the corners because they harden faster.
Right.
We need a book.
Right.
We need a book.
You need a book?
Yeah, on those little things.
No. Well, it's right over there.
Yeah. Well, we teach you that as we go along.
You know what? It's common sense. When you take out a gallon of ice cream and you say, gee, this is hard, that was in the corner, so you won't put it in the corner anymore. Think about the corner. It has freezing on this side and this side. In the middle, it only has freezing on one side. It's going to get harder in the corner. It's going to get harder on the bottom. The bottom in the corner. That's where I put my soupiest ice creams.
Okay, question. Scoops. Did you go through a process of what you believe is the best scoop?
Oh, there's no question.
That's
Which
what
one?
we're talking about. That's why we need the book.
It's right over there. The book is right over there.
Which scoop?
Well, the scooping is a whole thing in itself. A zero scoop.
That's the thing with fill.
Yeah, that's it. I don't know much about that. I'm suspect of that. But the design of the scoop is such that you're going to save, in my opinion, can I say this?
Yeah.
You're going to save 15% on your ice cream. Because when you, can we say this really?
I think you're doing fine.
When you scoop with a zero scoop and you do it the way they tell you, you draw it across and you create a big ball of ice cream, but it's hollow.
Yeah.
The ball of ice cream is hollow. It looks big and beautiful, but it's hollow. So you're saving that. Now, I'm not cheating anybody because I still get more ice cream than anyone else. But that's what they profess. Now, the antifreeze that's in it, it probably sounds good on paper. I don't buy it. Because how hot can your hand get to influence antifreeze through a piece of steel? You got to have some hot hands. It doesn't work. But if you keep your water hot in the dipping, what is it called, dipping well?
Yeah.
If you keep your water hot and clean and you roll it at an angle, they say a 45-degree angle towards you, boy, you got a great scoop there. Now the scoops with the thumb thing that you press, that the hook goes around it, that's junk.
They break easily. I'll tell you what I use, and you'll get a laugh out of why. There's always reasons for everything. I use the largest, what they call a spade, a curved thing.
Right.
I use the largest spade that I can because I did 35 years of trade shows giving out free ice cream. And so by using the spade and putting a big clump of ice cream and handing it to people who are just freeloading, the faster I get rid of that ice cream, the faster I can sit down.
Now, Zero also makes those spades, and we each have one at my store, all the servers, so that they can scrape the sides of the gallon down after they serve the ice cream to bring the ice cream in, eliminate the air, and keep the ice cream fresher.
And guess what? In a dipping cabinet, a visual display cabinet, do you really want your your customers seeing your employees scraping down the ice cream?
No.
And you ask for mint chip, and they're trying to get the last scoop out of that tub, and they're handing it to you? That's awful. And then what's even worse is the real smart-ass customer who comes in, and they see that you've taken the last bit of scooping, and you've put it onto a new tub, so it's all mounded over, and they go, "You're giving me the stuff from the old tub."
I want the new stuff. And there's also the size of your tubs, whether you use 1 gallon, 3 gallon, 5 gallon tubs that you scoop from, the circumference, whether you use square tubs, round tubs, whether you use cardboard or plastic or stainless steel. There's so many different little things.
That's covered in the book.
Oh yeah. I mean, I'm just saying, it's coincidentally, it's in the book.
We'll tell you in the book why certain ice creams.
You don't have to know why. Just do it.
Yes, I'll tell you why. It's very,
Sugar,
it's the sugar. Instead of waiting to find out this one's too hard to scoop or this one's too soft, it's very easy. Like Jeff said, you've got refrigeration running all the way around the cabinet. In the center here, there's only refrigeration here. In the corner, there's refrigeration here. The higher the sugar content, the softer the product is going to be. So your vanilla is going to be really easy to freeze. Put it in the center. The Heath candy bar with extra butterscotch in it is going to be as soft as can be. Put it in the corner where it's getting 2 levels of
and anything
freezing.
with wine in it, put it in the corner on the bottom.
Yeah. Because cold air falls, so your corners and the bottom are always going to be colder than up top. You know what? We did run out of time on making ice cream. I'm sorry. I just see
It's
we're
in the
at 2.
book.
Yeah, I recommend his book. I really do. I mean, where are you going to get a master's degree in business in one book? And it's just that simple. You could spend the next 4 years trying to learn all this stuff, or you can pick up Jeff's book,
So no
and
more ice
it's
cream,
right
huh?
there.
No more ice cream.
No, I think we've fed him enough. We're going to give him a tour of the factory.
Yes.
The flavors with alcohol tend to be softer?
Yes.
Because the alcohol never freezes.
Very
it stays
tricky
in
how you
suspension.
store them to freeze them. Okay.
Anybody else? Yes.
Yes.
Well, in foreign countries, the electricity fluctuates a lot. So do you all does it have a built-in stabilizer, or do I need to get an external?
Interesting question.
You're talking about the electricity?
Yeah.
Yes. Well, what we do is we buy motors that cost more, and they have a range of like a 220-volt motor has a range down to 190 and up to 240. So it can take that fluctuation without any trouble at all.
I don't have to worry about getting an external stabilizer power.
Not necessary, no, with my machines. Would you all like to see the factory? Give you a quick tour? Jeff, thank you very much. You did a great job.
Thanks, Steve. Thank you.
And great ice cream.
Hi, friends. Over the past year, I've received many calls and emails from people interested in opening an ice cream store, or those who have just opened one and aren't doing as well as they expected. So during the past year, I've traveled to many places throughout the country helping people open their store or planning to open their store. 2 things were wrong with that. First of all, it cost them a lot of money to fly me out there, rent a car, rent a hotel, put me up for a couple of days or whatever, and the cost was prohibitive. The second thing that was really apparent was that they weren't getting any real world experience. That's when I began Mystic Ice Cream Boot Camp. This is a 14-hour course in a working ice cream store, my working ice cream store. We'll keep the store closed for the entire day and open it at night. This way we'll have a classroom type atmosphere. The course will be from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. with 4 participants maximum. Those 4 people will go through everything here, and then at 6 o'clock, from 6 to 10, they'll actually participate behind the counter of Mystic Ice Cream, serving people, greeting people, dipping the ice cream, and handling the inventory and the cash register. In short, they'll do everything that has to be done to an ice cream store. At 10 o'clock, we clean up. The sanitary conditions in an ice cream store are paramount. There's a lot of dairy, a lot of sugar, so we'll have to do that. What they'll learn in that day, in that full day, is the complete startup costs of opening your ice cream store. Not any ice cream store, but the one you're planning on opening up. We'll talk about finding and, more importantly, scouting a location. We'll go over your legal options, whether you want to become an S-corp, a partnership, an ownership, limited liability, all those options that you will have. We'll talk about how much lead time you have before your store opens, and again, more importantly, what to do with that lead time. We'll go over the regulations, licenses, and permits that you'll need. Now the equipment. We'll talk about what equipment you absolutely need, and just as important, the equipment that you absolutely don't need when you start up a business. We'll go through your initial supplies and a list of suppliers. Then we'll talk about money, making it, counting it, and keeping it. In short, you'll have a complete store organization. We'll go through your inventory, the advertising and marketing and promotion exposure that you will need, and of course the ones you don't need to spend money on. We'll also talk about employees, hiring them, keeping them, what salary to pay them, and also how to get rid of them. We'll go through the daily money handling, which means you'll actually work the cash register, you'll know how to change the tapes, you'll know how to do the accounting at the end of the night, and you'll know how to make your deposits. Then the big topic, sales tax. We'll go through that as well. The store will be closed to the public for the full day and only open at night. In short, you'll learn if this business is for you. In one day you'll know. You'll understand how to plan it, how to open it, and how to run it. You'll also understand how to make more money than you ever thought you could in this business because it is extremely profitable. You can tie it in with a trip to Steve's seminar if you'd like, and we can do this one day prior I'll run the class and one day after I'll run the class. So the boot camp can be either on a Tuesday or a Thursday, or contact me for dates. I've arranged with local hotels here for discount rates. You'll receive the boot camp workbook, which will be personalized for your operation. You'll also get a copy of the Mystic Recipe Book with more than 20 great recipes that will easily carry you through your first year of business. You'll get an organizational CD. We'll have lunch, snacks, and dinner. The cost is $500 per person or $750 for a husband and wife. For more information or to book your date, just contact me at xhippie@aol.com. XHIPPEE@aol.com. Thank you.